Hi BookTube, it is Nadine and welcome back to my channel Widely Reading. And what I'm going to do today is tell you about the books that I have read over the last couple of weeks, and I've got 4 of them. And first I'm going to tell you about the ones written by my new favorite author, and don't you love it when that happens. His name is Dennard Dayle, and he is a wonderful satirist, and now is the time for satire. Am I not right? So Dennard Dayle has written 2 books, and the first one that I read, and the first he wrote, is Everything Abridged, and this is a book of stories, and it's written as dictionary entries, and there are some kind of one-liners, dictionary entries, but sandwiched in between them are the short stories. And now I have to tell you something. I already recorded this session once, but I'm re-recording it because I read some of those entries out loud, and let's just say it was a crime. It was a crime against comedy, so I'm not going to do that again. What I'm going to do is point to a few. Here's one. Pause for smiles. All right, now to talk about the stories. The stories that are sandwiched in there are very playful in form. So, for example, one is written in the form of checking account transactions. And so as we read these transactions, we get to understand the story of this poor young guy over a 3-month period. Some of the other stories take place in a dystopian future where New Jersey is now a place called East Ward, and it is part of a continent-wide country called Free Dominion, where nobody and nothing is free, of course. And there's also one novella, which also takes place during that time. It's kind of like a hacker adventure story. So the second book of his that I read is a novel and a satire, and it's called How to Dodge a Cannonball. And it takes place during the U.S. Civil War, and the main character is Anders. And he is a 15-year-old flag twirler in the Confederate Army. But through the fog of war, he gets lost. He realizes he's in Union territory. So he takes a uniform off of a dead soldier and then goes to that soldier's unit. He can, I guess, tell what it is by the uniform. Or I'm not remembering it right. But in any case, he finds a unit, he stumbles onto this unit, and they're black soldiers. He tells them he's an octoroon, but of course nobody believes him. But they take him in because he's kind of a Candide-like character. He's just very sweet and innocent. And so the novel is the adventures of this black unit, and it is not a war story. They are not in battle. They stay behind Union lines, but they do all kinds of strange and wacky things and meet some outrageous characters. And I think a lot of the humor comes from the contrast between the wackiness of the activity and the language. It's written in kind of a King James Bible elevated diction, so the contrast between that and what it's describing is really amusing. I think I remember something like that in The Good Lord Bird as well. And it reminds me a bit of The Good Lord Bird, and if you read that one, you might really like this. I actually read this one on audio, and it was narrated by William Demerit, and he does a fantastic job. His comic timing is impeccable. I also read a book called Little Blue Encyclopedia for Vivian, and this is written by Hazel Jane Plant. She's a Canadian writer, and it's from a small publisher, also Canadian, called Metonymy Press. And this is the story of a friendship between 2 trans women, and Vivian, one of them, has died very recently, and this encyclopedia, this book, is the way of the narrator processing her grief for losing her friend. And it's told in encyclopedia entries, an encyclopedia of a Canadian sitcom or Canadian show called Little Blue. And it's a very quirky kind of show, and each entry is about the characters and about the show, but of course it's also about Vivian, who is also very quirky and entertaining. And so the narrator is kind of processing her grief by writing about her friend Vivian. And in the process, we learn not only about Vivian, but the author, not purposely, but as we read, we can learn a lot about the narrator as well. The last book I finished is Edenglassie by Melissa Lucashenko, and she is an Australian writer of Aboriginal and European descent. And it takes place in Queensland, Australia, around Brisbane, and there are two timelines. One is the 19th century, and the other is 2024. So in the 19th century, we are following Mulanyan, who is a young Guri man, and through him, from his early childhood up until mid-adulthood, we meet his family, his friends, his neighbors, and through that we experience the culture. And it was a great immersion. That was a great part of the book. This was also a period when colonialism was starting to really take hold. And in this area at that time, the Aboriginal people still outnumbered the whites, but already the racism, the violence, land grabbing was all getting started. So in 2024, the story revolves around Granny Eddie, and she is a 100-year-old Aboriginal woman who is in the hospital at the moment because she fell and hit her head. But she's being interviewed by a white reporter, and because for the festival he wants to talk to the oldest Aboriginal woman, what is her experience of life in the area. And she's also visited by an ancestor, and everyone thinks she's imagining this ghost, but she may not be. Let's see. Then she is also visited by her grandniece Winona, who is an Aboriginal activist, and her doctor, Dr. Johnny Newman, just discovered that he has some Aboriginal DNA in him. And so for a lot of this story, she and Dr. Johnny are walking through the festival together, and she is pointing out to him that in this Aboriginal festival, we have a lot of white people appropriating Aboriginal culture. And Dr. Johnny is all excited that he thinks he may be part Aboriginal, but maybe he's starting to think about it more deeply. So eventually these two timelines converge, stuff happens. And what I liked about this book was the immersion in the culture. My problem with the book was the characters. I felt like we just really did not get to see them from the inside. We were watching them all from the outside, like a movie. And they just didn't have much interiority. They felt kind of thin. The only exception maybe would be Nita from the 19th century. But outside of that, in the 2024, it was especially bad. Winona felt like, first of all, kind of annoying and egotistical person, but mainly she felt like a stereotype. Dr. Johnny was just a complete airhead. But Granny Eddie was very entertaining. So I didn't have the greatest experience with this book. I definitely liked her previous one, Too Much Lip, a lot better. But this book is getting lots of love, lots of attention, so your mileage may vary. So that's what I finished, and I am currently reading 4 different books. 2 of them are historical fiction. I'm thinking about doing a video on boundaries in historical fiction, boundary pushing. And these are 2 rereads for me that really pushed the boundaries. One is Sudden Death by Alvaro and Enrigue. And I'm rereading it because my Goodreads review said, fantastic in every way. So it's not giving me much to go on. The other one is Night Circus by Angela Carter. This was written in 1984, and I read it a long time ago. And not to be confused with Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And again, a real boundary pusher and really entertaining. I am also continuing to read a nonfiction, Everyone Who Is Gone Is Here, the U.S., Central America, and the Making of a Crisis. and it is narrative nonfiction. So you're reading it as stories in people's lives. Very readable. And it stops in 2024, so before the shitstorm in a dumpster fire that we're living in now. That's all I'll say about that. So I'm also just started reading with a group, Ursula LeGuin, my favorite Ursula, and Always Coming Home. This is sort of a less well-known book of hers. It's not so much well, I guess it's sort of a novel. It's fiction. It's sort of like an anthropological study of a far future indigenous group in California. And so all of her books, that's what I love about her. She's like an anthropologist in science fiction. So those are the 4 that I'm reading now. And then queued up, I have some reads with a group. One group we're reading The Lathe of Heaven, another Ursula LeGuin, Can't Have Enough Ursula. Also reading with another group, Hotel World by Ali Smith. And then the last one is Revelation Space for Science Fiction Group. So that is what I've been up to. Please let me know what you've been up to. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know who your favorite authors are, anything reading. Well, let me know. I want to hear from you. So I guess I'll be signing off. Take care. Be well. Be kind.